The 2026 NBA draft is right around the corner, and with your guys' amazing support on my last mock draft video, I think it's a great opportunity to do a final mock draft before this draft coming up on Tuesday, June 23rd. So, if you want to hear my full first round NBA mock draft, tune in right after the intro. Thank you for tuning in to podcast number 99 of Sports Talk with JWock. I am your host, Jonah Walkenfoos, and like you heard, podcast number 99. We are one episode away from podcast 100, and I'm so excited for you guys to see that episode. That'll be coming in the coming weeks. But let's get into mock draft 2.0 for me, and this is a full first round because you guys were asking for it, and you're going to get it because you guys showed a tremendous amount of support on my last mock draft video. And I thought, what a great opportunity. We're only a week away. As I'm recording this on Monday, you'll be seeing this on Saturday, so it's only going to be a few days until the NBA draft on Tuesday, the 23rd. So let's get right into this mock draft. Before I get into it, though, there will be no trades. I know there are probably going to be trades that go down, and maybe even some big trades, maybe even the Giannis trade, who knows. But I'm not going to be doing any of that. I'm just going to be basically guessing as if these teams were selecting 1 through 30 and it was staying the same order, no trades at all. So just little disclaimer there. I don't want you guys to think that I made any trades. This is purely picks 1 through 30 based off of what it looks like right now. And we have the number 1 pick with the Washington Wizards. We already know kind of the top 4. I still think AJ DeBonsa is a consensus number 1 pick. I feel like he's the most talented player in this draft. And I just feel like passing up on a player like AJ is just not the right move for the Wizards. There was a couple weeks ago saying that the Wizards were, open to moving him, or not moving him, but moving the first round pick and fielding offers, which isn't the worst thing to do, but I feel like they need to stay there and draft AJ. At pick number 2, this is where it kind of becomes a debate with the Jazz because I personally am not a big fan of the Darren Peterson and Keontae George fitting at the guard position, but I am going to have them select Darren Peterson. Some people are debating as to whether or not Cameron Boozer should be the guy that they draft, because if you don't know, Carlos Boozer is one of the veteran scouts on that team or something like that, and Carlos Boozer is the father of Cameron Boozer, but I just feel like Darren Peterson makes more sense for the Jazz. Darren Peterson literally has superstar potential. I know he has some flaws. There's some people that question his character and then also his work ethic. But I personally think it's something that I think the Jazz are going to be totally fine with taking on. They were totally fine with taking Ace Bailey last year, and Ace Bailey was kind of a head case going into the draft. I don't think the Jazz are really going to have a problem with Darren Peterson. So I do have them selecting him at pick number 2. At pick number 3, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. And I'm going to go through the first 4 picks pretty quickly. I think this is Cam Boozer. I don't think they're going to select Caleb Wilson in this sense because I feel like Cameron Boozer just analytically is just going to blow them out of the waters. And I think the Grizzlies are just going to want to get the best guy analytically. And Cameron Boozer could easily be the best player in this draft one day. But who knows? I think he's the most NBA ready out of these first 4. But I think this is a great selection for the Memphis Grizzlies. And then obviously with the Bulls, they get the remaining player of the top 4, and that is Caleb Wilson at pick 4, which honestly is a great player to get. Caleb Wilson, probably the biggest project out of the top 4. He has concerns about his jump shot right now, but overall you're getting a very high motor, good, solid defensive player. He definitely needs to work on his off-ball defense, especially. He kind of gets caught ball watching, but he is a very solid defender and a very solid offensive player. Had an unbelievable freshman season that was cut short, unfortunately, for North Carolina, and I think he's going to have a great fit with the Chicago Bulls, who just actually hired Tiago Splitter. So as a Bulls fan, I'm very excited about that. Next up, we have pick number 5, and this is where some would say the draft begins, because in my opinion, I feel like the top 4, no matter what order you put it in, I feel like that's going to be the top 4 players. I just don't see anything else crazy happening. Some people are saying the Bulls might take Acuff. I just don't agree. We have the Clippers at pick number 5, who actually got the Pacers pick. the Pacers are still, absolutely frustrated with that situation. But this is where it gets difficult for me because I feel like Michael Brown could be 100% the pick here. And this is where I'm going to actually have him taking Michael Brown because I think the Clippers are actually pretty high on Michael Brown because, he's had his workouts there. And I just feel like he just works so well. Michael Brown is definitely one of the higher potential guards out of this class, probably one of the higher potential players in this draft. So Michael Brown is the pick at 5. At pick number 6, we have the Brooklyn Nets, and this is where I believe that they are going to be personally going Keaton Wagler. I know he canceled his draft, basically his workout with the Nets, so that obviously put some speculation as to whether or not Keaton Wagler actually wants to play for Brooklyn. Maybe he got a draft promise from the Clippers. But personally, I just feel like if you're the Nets and you want to go best player available, I feel like Keaton Wagler is definitely a great player to add. I know the Nets added multiple guards via the draft last year, but Keaton Wagler is the best out of any of those guys they would have drafted anyways. And you just can't pass up on a guy, even though you have plenty of guards. And then at pick number 7, this is like best case scenario for the Kings. They draft Darius Acuff Jr. This is a player that we've heard they might be trying to trade up for because they're so high on him. In my opinion, 5 through 7 could go multiple different ways with the guards, so don't be surprised if the Kings maybe trade up to 5 to get Acuff, or if Acuff goes to the Nets, or I don't see Acuff going to the Clippers, but it's going to be an interesting situation. I think 5 through 7, you're going to see some very interesting stuff. We also saw the Nets interested in Nate Ament, but I just don't see it happening. I just feel like the Nets are going to just go best player available. But yeah, the Kings draft Darius Acuff. At pick number 8, this is an interesting situation for the Atlanta Hawks. In my opinion, I still have them taking Ade Mara, the big man from Michigan. I just feel like, yes, there's Kingston Flemings, there's players like that, but I just feel like at the big man, the Hawks have just really struggled at finding that true big man, and I feel like Ade Mara is the guy that they should 100% go after because he's a very talented big man. He's pretty slow on the feet, doesn't shoot the ball very well, but the skills he has is tremendous. He's a great shot blocker. He's a solid finisher around the rim, but he's also has some very underrated playmaking abilities. He definitely needs to improve on his rebounding, but I think the Hawks would get a very good pick at Ade Mara. At pick number 9, we have the Dallas Mavericks. And in my opinion, this could go multiple different ways. But if you ask me, the Mavericks have looked, it seems like Braden Burries is the pick right now. But if Kingston Flemings is still on the board, I just don't see a scenario where it's like you don't take him. So I'm going to have the Mavericks taking Kingston Flemings. I feel like Kingston Flemings and Cooper Flagg could be a very good match or a very good duo together for the long term. And Kingston Flemings, if he can build a little bit of muscle, he could be a very solid 3-and-D player. And that's exactly what the Mavericks could be using to match alongside Cooper Flagg for the long-term future. But I could also see them very much going Braden Burries. At pick number 10, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. This team, in my opinion, whether they keep Giannis or not, needs to add a young player that can develop over time. And I think Nate Ament is just the perfect pick for them. Nate Ament definitely needs to fill out in the muscle weight, but Nate Ament is a very big boom or bust player, and I feel like the Bucks should go after a player like him because Nate Ament, with the proper development, and now that they have Taylor Jenkins as their head coach, I think Nate Ament is a perfect fit. He's a player that likes being coached hard. He went to coach Rick Barnes at Tennessee and wanted to be coached hard. I think Chris Jenkins or Taylor Jenkins, sorry, whatever the Bucks coach's name, I know his last name's Jenkins, but I think Nate Ament will fit perfectly with that Milwaukee Bucks squad, with Giannis or not. And at the 11th pick for the Golden State Warriors, they are a team that's going to want to win now, but I also feel like they should look a little bit of the long-term future, and I think this player kind of does both, and that's Braden Burries. He drops to you at pick 11. I feel like you can't pass up on a guy like Braden Burries. He's just insanely talented. He's a great 3-and-D kind of guy. He also can play off the ball, so if you want Steph Curry to have the ball in his hands, which you most likely do, Braden Burries is going to be able to fit in very well He's a little bit older. He's, I believe, 20 years old. I know this says 19, but I think he's 20, almost 21. But he's just a great young player that I'm really high on personally. At pick number 12, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think this is where they draft Yaxel Lendeborg. The Thunder have a lot of big decisions to make, whether that's extending Cason Wallace, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Lou Dort. I think Cason Wallace will be back for sure. Hartenstein's definitely in the question marks, but I think personally Yaxel Lendeborg is just a player that you could just fill in and especially fill in for Lou Dort. I feel like Yaxel Lendeborg is just your all-around kind of great player. He's a little bit older as a rookie, but the Thunder can manage to have a guy like that. But I do think the Thunder will try to trade or package 12 and 17 to try to move up, but we'll have to just wait and see how that goes down. So at pick number 13, we have the Miami Heat, and obviously the Heat have been rumored to be in the works for possibly getting Giannis, but if they do decide to stay at pick 13, I could see them going high upside for like a Karim Lopez kind of guy. I could see them going LeBaron Philon. I just don't see it necessarily with Philon, so I'm going to actually have them go Karim Lopez. I feel like Karim Lopez is definitely a very much boomer bust player, but he's shown some serious potential playing overseas. I believe he's playing in Spain, so he could definitely be a player that would be worth looking into. At pick number 14, the last pick in the lottery, we have the Charlotte Hornets, and a player that I've really had or fallen in love with for the Hornets to select is Morez Johnson Jr., the forward from Michigan. A high motor guy that's young, he plays just very physical, and he's a guy that could be your like small ball five, for example, for the Charlotte Hornets, who are looking to get more of a big physical presence down low. Morez Johnson Jr., I think would fit very well with this squad, and with a playmaker like LaMelo Ball passing the ball to him, he could really thrive offensively as well. So I really like Morez Johnson Jr. going to the Charlotte Hornets. And now we're out of the lottery, so now we have 15 through 30. I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker on this because I don't want this video to be super, super long. But at pick number 15, I'm really high on Cameron Carr for Baylor. This is the Bulls pick, by the way. I think Cameron Carr could be a great player. He had a really, really good workout at the Combine. He had a great scrimmage the first day, and I think he dropped like 30-something points. So he's definitely a player that could go in the lottery. He's like a fringe lottery player, in my opinion, and the Bulls are picking right outside the lottery, and I think Cameron Carr would be a great pick for them. At pick 16, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, and this one could go multiple different directions. I thought about LeBaron Philon, Hans Steinbach, but I overall think that Christian Anderson, the guard from Texas Tech, is going to be the guy. Christian Anderson is a proven shooter. He shot like 38% from the three-point line his freshman year, and then his sophomore year, he did even better by shooting a 42% from the three-point line with, I believe, 8 attempts per game. That is unreal three-point percentage, by the way, especially with 8 attempts per game. He's a guy that you could fill in for sure, and it'll be interesting with him and Walter Clayton, but I do think John Morant will get traded, so I think those two could be the possible future guards for this Memphis Grizzlies team, who've already had the selection at third of Cameron Boozer. Next up, we have the Thunder once again, and in my opinion, this is a draft where I feel like they could go Hans Steinbach. I feel like he's a guy that you could fill in at the 4. You could put him at the 5, but Hans Steinbach, in my opinion, if you could develop his jump shot, he could be one of the better players in this draft. I'm personally really high on Hans Steinbach, and I think he, in Oklahoma City, could really thrive in that system, especially defensively. He's not the best defender, but I feel like he can definitely learn from some of these coaches and players on how to play, especially with how good this Oklahoma City Thunder team is realistically defensively when obviously they're not fouling. But at pick number 18, we have the Charlotte Hornets, and this one was kind of hard for me. I'm personally going to go Alan Graves, the Santa Clara redshirt freshman, I believe. Definitely a solid player. Maybe he wasn't a redshirt, but he's kind of a player that he's not going to have like the flashy plays, but he can space the floor. He is a solid defender. Like, he's just the kind of like blue collar kind of player that I feel like the Hornets could use The Hornets at pick 14 go Morris Johnson Jr., Allen Graves at 18. I feel like that could really help shape up their backcourt for sure going into this upcoming season, which they need for sure. Next up, we have the 19th pick, and that is the Toronto Raptors. And this player cannot fall anymore, and that is LeBaron Philon. I think he's a perfect fit for Toronto. They need a guard that's going to be able to score, especially if they're going to try to maybe move off of Emmanuel quickly in the offseason. I think Philon could fill in very well. I know he's very similar to Quickly, but I feel like Philon has more upside at this point, and he's a very good scorer. He just needs to work on the defense a little bit. Some say he looks like Shea when you watch his highlights. I kind of see it, but I just don't really want to compare him to that. But I think Philon at 19 is great value. At pick number 20, we have the San Antonio Spurs. This is Atlanta's first round pick, but it's going to San Antonio. And this pick, in my opinion, is Chris Sinak Jr. I feel like Chris Sinak Jr. is a guy that you could definitely develop under Wembanyama, who could be your backup big, who possibly could be your starting power forward one day. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I like Chris Sinak. If he could fill out his frame, he could definitely be a very solid big man with a high motor. And I think the Spurs, coming off this finals loss, definitely need a new backup big. Luke Cornett was crucial in the playoffs for them, but they definitely need to improve at some point. And I feel like why not at pick 20? It doesn't hurt. At pick number 21, we have the Detroit Pistons. And this is where I think they go for the Iowa guard, Bennett Sturts. I really like Bennett Sturts. He's a little bit older, which I think is a player that could be better off to start off with the Pistons. Realistically, at pick 21, the Pistons aren't going to be able to get that sidekick for Cade Cunningham, so I could see them trying to move off of this pick and go get a Kyrie Irving or a Kawhi Leonard. But Bennett Sturts, if they do stay at this pick, I think is a great pickup. I think he's a guy that would just fit super well alongside Cade Cunningham. And Bennett Sturts just really had a really good year. He's had a great college career, but especially with Iowa, I really liked how he played. At pick number 22, we have the Philadelphia 76ers, and I think this is where they go for Dalen Swain, the guard/forward from Texas. Dalen Swain still has some question marks about his three-point abilities, but Dalen Swain is one of my favorite prospects in this class, especially if he could pan out. And you put him on a team like Philly, who needs more of those wings. Philly has the guard depth. They need a wing. And I don't know. Who knows what they're going to do with Joel Embiid, but I think Dalen Swain is a good pick. And maybe Philly will have multiple first-round picks this year. Who knows? But I think Dalen Swain is the guy to go with at pick 22. At pick number 23, we have the Atlanta Hawks, and this is where I personally kind of had some struggles. I feel like best player available could be Kobe Pete, and by the way, ignore Braylon Mullins. He's going back to UConn. Some of these guys, they just don't update them, but I do have this being Ibuka Okori, the point guard from Stanford. Ibuka Okori can be very much he could go pick 15 or he could go pick 30. He's got a wide range on his draft board. But I think Ibuka Okori is just a great fill-in player. The Hawks definitely are going to need to find that point guard in the future. Ibuka Okori definitely doesn't measure the best height-wise and weight-wise. He's going to have to fill out. But he is a player that can get to the rim actually very well. He's also a solid shooter. He lit up North Carolina earlier this year with, I think, 30-something points. He is a great player, and I think the Hawks could take a chance on Ibuka Okori, especially if they could develop him properly. That would be a steal at pick 23. At pick number 24, we have the New York Knicks, and I have them taking a flyer on a player that's dropping tremendously, and that's Jaden Quaintance. Jaden Quaintance, if you don't know, barely played any of this season of the 2025-2026 season with Kentucky after transferring from Arizona State. He had a very promising Arizona State freshman year. He was 18 years old. He's very young, and in my opinion, so he tore his ACL, I believe, at the end of his freshman year. It might have been in the offseason. I can't remember. So he played 3 or 4 games in total with Kentucky. So if you watch his highlights from Kentucky, it's not really that long of a video. But Quaintance, if he could stay healthy, this would be an absolute steal of a pick for New York at 24. Plus, if you look at New York, they could be losing Mitchell Robinson in free agency. He might be getting a bag from another team. And this is a good opportunity to get a guy like Quaintance who has tremendous defensive abilities. He reminds me a lot of Robert Williams. Like, if he can stay healthy, he's a player that can genuinely be a difference maker. And I think the New York Knicks at 24 is just an absolute steal. At pick number 25, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. And this is a player I really like that fits along that. And that's Henry Vassar from North Carolina, their big man. The Lakers still need a big man. And in my opinion, Vassar could be a guy that would be really good pick and roll with Luka, especially since the Lakers, most likely, I would think, moving off of LeBron, they're going to re-sign Reeves. I think Vassar could be that backup big man for the future, but also could be the starter one day over, like Jackson Hayes. I don't know if they're going to bring back Ayton. Probably not, but I think Vassar just really fits well with what the Lakers are trying to do. And he's not going to be the guy that's going to score 20 plus points per game like the Lakers want every rookie to do, but he's going to be a player that you could fill in and I think would fit really well with Luka and Austin Reeves in that pick and roll. So I have Henry Vassar going 25. At 26, we have the Denver Nuggets, and they're in a very interesting situation. I think the Denver Nuggets are, they're going to have to make some changes to their roster. We'll see if they do so. I personally think they should try to at least move off of Jamal Murray. But if this guy's still here, I think Koa Pete from Arizona is a steal at 26. His jump shot is definitely not great. I'm not going to lie. But he really does kind of remind me of Aaron Gordon. Like, if he could develop his jump shot, you've got yourself an Aaron Gordon replacement in Koa Pete. And honestly, earlier in the year, Koa Pete was going in the lottery. So at pick 26, if Denver could get their hands on Koa Pete and develop him properly, they got themselves a really good player that you can fill in and play right away, especially for a team that's trying to win championships now. Koa Pete fills in really well, and he's already got the build to be in the NBA. So really good pick there for the Nuggets. At pick 27, we have the Boston Celtics, and this is where I got to find him. I have them taking the St. John's big man, Zubi Ejiofor. Ejiofor, in my opinion, is incredibly underrated. He's a bit of an older rookie, but he's a big man that you could definitely fill in. He's probably more of a modern day power forward in the NBA, at least in my eyes, but Zubi Ejiofor is just a player that I just feel like Brad Stevens would just fall in love with Ejiofor at 27 especially, because I think that's great value. At pick number 28, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I think they could go for a little bit of a flyer here and take Malik Thomas, the freshman from Arizona who was the guard alongside Darius Acuff. I think Malik Thomas, doesn't get enough credit for his play, especially since he was alongside Darius Acuff. I think he was just kind of under his belt. I think the Timberwolves need to find themselves a true point guard. They could definitely be trying to move this trade for a guard like Kyrie Irving. But if they stay here, I think Malik Thomas could be a guy that they could develop. And it's a little bit different than Rob Dillingham's situation, in my opinion. So if I'm Minnesota, they should definitely look into Malik Thomas at least. At pick number 29, we have only two more picks. The Cleveland Cavaliers, in my opinion, I'm kind of torn on whether they should take Isaiah Evans or Alex Caravan. Personally, I'm going to go with Isaiah Evans because with Caravan, you're basically getting a player that's just like Max Strus and Sam Merrill. So Isaiah Evans, he's a little bit different. If his shooting could be on point, he could be a very good player and a steal at pick 29. And I think Isaiah Evans at 29 is just great value anyways. So I do have the Cleveland Cavaliers taking him. And then the final pick of the first round and the final pick of this NBA mock draft, pick number 30, we have the Dallas Mavericks, and I have them taking a flyer. I'm not sure if he's on here. He is. Sergio de la Rey from Spain. He's a young player. He's got some tremendous IQ. He's a solid shooter. I don't remember what his stats looked like from percentage-wise, but Sergio de la Rey could definitely be a very good player for the Mavericks at pick 30. And why not take a flyer on a bigger guard? He definitely needs to fill his frame. 6'6", 174 is definitely a very slim frame, so he's going to have to gain some weight. But I do think the Mavericks could take a flyer on Sergio De La Rea. But anyways, that's going to be all the first round of my first round mock draft of the 2026 NBA draft. I'll put it up on the screen real quick so that you guys can have it a little bigger so you don't have to have my face cutting off some of the picks. That is going to be the end of podcast number 99 of Sports Talk with JWock. Thank you guys so much for your continuous support, especially on the last mock draft video. That got over 2.5K views and so many comments of you guys saying that you guys wanted a full first round mock draft. So here you guys go. I'm excited to be able to give this to you, especially with the draft coming up, and I'm excited to watch the draft. I'll be doing updates, maybe videos, but especially tune into my Instagram page, Facebook page, so you guys could see updates on my thoughts on how the picks go and how the draft goes in general. But thank you guys so much for your support. You can check me out on all social media platforms down below in the description. If you haven't already, you can always hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And I just wanted to do a quick update. I said on the Instagram page, if you haven't checked that post out, I said there was going to be an update soon. So here's the update. I'm going to be uploading every other week now, unfortunately. I'm not going to be uploading weekly now. Just for the meantime, just because I have a very busy schedule. I'm working on a business to where I'm going to be doing some basketball training. So, you could stay tuned for that. You could also follow From the Ground Training on Instagram. You guys can always check that out as well to check out my training page. But yeah, I'm going to upload every other week, just also because we are hitting kind of the era or the time of sports where there's just not as much sports going on. But thank you guys so much for your continuous support. I appreciate all of you guys, and I hope you all have an amazing week. God bless.